Real quick before this interview starts, I just wanted to throw in a couple bits of information because we kind of just jump right into this. We don't exactly give an intro like I usually do, but we're going to be talking to Armando Juan Carlos Safir, um, also known as DJ Mando. He's a DJ who has DJed at places in Madison, Wisconsin, Milwaukee. He's opened for many different artists at places like Summerfest. He's opened for artists like Kyle, Young Gravy, and a lot of different artists. So we're going to be talking to him about labor power in DJing and how we could potentially organize DJs and entertainers and performers into a sort of collective that could allow them to build more labor power and to just generally get paid better. We talk about the methods that clubs and venues use to weaken labor power. We talk about some of the different methods they use and how they use them, and how it affects the extremely talented artists. This is an important thing because artists, DJs, club performers, all these different these are things of social cohesion, and they're privatized right now, so a lot of the people who participate in them are getting exploited. Okay, so we need to find a way as the left to bring these very important social cohesion sort of methods, which is like going to a club, having a club to go to, and having a DJ who always plays the right song, and these things uh, serve a real social purpose. So that's the point of this interview. I hope you enjoy.
Damn.
Yeah.
So what kind of impact has that had on your just finances? Have you been able to
Yeah.
claim any sort
So
of like relief or
so
anything?
yeah, so I was lucky because I have an LLC, so um I was able to what's the
The
name?
PVP?
Yeah, I got unemployment because of my LLC.
Oh, okay,
So I,
got you.
I was I qualified as an independent contractor. So I was able to
Mm,
get they made like specific, usually somebody like me wouldn't have been able to get uninsurance or
mhm.
unemployment. But since I was an independent contractor and it was a pandemic, they made like exceptions, and so they designed a whole thing for people like me to get unemployment. So like DJs, bartenders, waiters and waitresses,
Anybody in the gig
strippers,
economy, like
anybody. Yeah,
Uber and
exactly.
shit like that?
Yeah. So I was able to get unemployment, and then they also came out with a small business loan.
Hmm.
So again, since I was an LLC, I could apply for that. So I mean, like, it was straight. A lot of the sometimes unemployment just like wasn't that much, anyways. Like it was probably like 160 a week, which is not that much at all. But then they added that like extra 600 to it, so I was getting some like 700 to 800 a week for like 2 or 3 months, and I was at my family's crib just because it was pandemic, so we didn't know what the hell was going on when it first started. So I was at the family crib, so I didn't have to pay rent. So like it wasn't too stressful, I guess. It was just that like the money that I was saving for all of 2019, I was saving it for a move to Chicago,
Hmm.
and since the pandemic hit, that money changed from a move to Chicago to I don't I'm not really too pressured to do anything until the pandemic is over, type of thing, because I
So
had probably like I had probably like 20, 30 G's saved up just from 2019.
holy shit. So
Mm-hmm.
how much? Okay, so real quick, I'm just gonna introduce you, and then I want to go off that sort of beginning. Um, this is DJ Mondo.
Good,
He's
everybody.
he's someone who I consider a friend. He invited me to Summerfest, for Christ's sake. He let me
Yeah,
live
that's
with him
crazy.
for 2 weeks, basically.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk to him about sort of organizing within a more independent workplaces where there's not a whole bunch of employees that go to a factory. It's just one performer, or it's just
Mhm.
a group of performers, or whatever. So um,
Yeah, I
sort of
actually
got
got
a.
one of my homies here too.
Oh,
One of my
really?
homies that I perform with, Dose. Yeah, he's playing Mario Kart right now.
What's up?
Yeah, my bad. I mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, you're good. But going back to the conversation we sort of started, we started earlier. So you said you got what, 600 a week plus
It was like 700 or 800 when you added. The government added $600 to everybody's benefits
to
for like,
unemployment? Yeah.
yeah. So I was getting like 100, 200, but then with the 600 addition, it made that more like 700 or 800.
So is that would that be an increase from like your typical, say it's 2019, your sort of
Um,
weekly, or does that vary quite a bit? How does your business model sort of work?
I think I think it was based on like your unemployment benefits weekly are based on like 1% of your income or something like that.
Hmm.
And so like 2019, I think I made probably like I had made I want to say like 35,000 for the
Gotcha.
year of 2019. So like it's not that much, but I knew that it's just like it's a building process. Like every year, if you look at the trend from when I started, I made probably 10K my first year ever DJing professionally. The next year I made like 25, and then the year after that I made 35. So like it was a steady increase, um, almost like almost doubling my income every year. So I mean, I was happy with the trend where it was going, and 2020 was only going to be crazier, you know.
Yeah. Um,
But the way I work is not hourly. It's just like a contract basis. So whatever we can negotiate for is what I end up getting.
well, okay. So that's a good that's a good segue. We so how do you negotiate that? Do you have a sort of collective of DJs? Is it just an individual's basis?
Yeah, it's
How's that work?
it's really just me or a booking manager that would negotiate for prices. Um and it's on a case by case basis. Like you kind of just figure out what the client's budget is, and if that budget works with the type of show that I'm trying to give. And it's a lot of like back and forth, but really it's just just talking with them, being honest, and being like, okay, what can you do that's not going to work for me? If it does work for me, then we book it.
So
um
what are like what's the is there a disparity in between the negotiator and the venue, like the client or the performer in the venue? Is there any
yeah
disparities in power?
yeah, I think like when there's different types of clients, right? So you could have a club owner, you could have a wedding, or a bride and groom, you could have a wedding venue, private parties, birthday parties, all types of stuff. um and I would say the biggest disparity where you have, I guess, the least amount of leverage would be at the clubs, right? So like clubs and concerts are the toughest to negotiate pay because there's way more DJs than there are venues and concerts, right? So if I say I wanted, like, okay, if I'm gonna DJ your concert or your club, say I want $1,000 to DJ your club. It's gonna be another DJ that's starting out, some kid in college or some kid in high school who's just like just getting the feel of it, just downloaded the app on his laptop and just wants to start DJing and needs the experience. If I say I want 1,000 and this kid who just is looking for experience, not really caring about money, maybe he doesn't have financial pressure and, whatever his situation, he's just like, oh, I'll do it for free just for the exposure. Or I'll do it for $100 and the exposure, like there's situations like that come up so often and club owners know it, because if you're DJing at the most busting club, they know they have the leeway because they're the most busting club. Everybody wants to DJ there. So they could find somebody that would DJ for way less money if they wanted to. But most times what really ends up happening is like a club has a certain standard. So they find the DJs that are cool with the price that they set and they just go with those DJs. It's kind of like a closed community.
Mm. So what you're saying is like they'll sort of leverage their exposure to younger, less experienced DJs, and since they're getting all this exposure, they're willing to undercut the price. They're willing to do it for free, as you said, or extremely cheap. So
Right.
even though clubs may not always do that, and they may do it sometimes, either way, the threat's always there. The sort of implicit,
Yep.
like you always know that there's this 19-year-old dude who's willing to walk in and do it for free.
Yeah. And another thing is like sometimes those kids they can bring in a lot of people. And that's ultimately what the club cares about. We want to get a lot of people in there for the least amount of money as possible so that we can make the most amount of money possible. But what the veteran DJs know and people who take the craft very, very seriously, not to say that the kids who are just starting out don't take it seriously, but veteran DJs know that there's a certain level of expertise and it's an art form. So like you have to know certain things, you have to have technique and things like that. So you could go with the guy who's just starting out and pay him only $100 because he doesn't know better. But if you do that, you might be sacrificing quality, which might lower the prestige of your club. So usually, like these clubs, they'll find like a certain group of guys who are cool with like taking a certain amount of money, which isn't that much, at least in Milwaukee. It wouldn't be that much. But if you can DJ at every different club in the city every day, then you can make a decent amount of money. Like if you make $200 or $300 every time you DJ at the club, you DJ there every day, then over a month, it'll add up.
So, like thinking of solutions for this, like what do you see like would be the possibility of like maybe like setting a standard in the industry where like there's no like you can't, even if you're providing exposure for young people, you have to pay them X, so they can't undercut it so much, or say for example like bonuses based off like the performance of the bar that night, because like I feel like you were like one of the most lit DJs in Madison, and I'm sure the clubs did very well, much like noticeably better than other DJs, and I highly doubt you saw much of that, and I just wonder like what do you think is the possibility of organizing these different sort of independent performers and DJs
Yeah,
into like a collective?
I feel like I think a lot of DJs would like the idea. And I haven't, I'm not really like I'm not plugged in with like too many of the DJs here in Milwaukee. Like I know them, but I haven't really like had conversation with them. I'm not too like ingrained in DJ culture because like I said, or I guess I haven't really said it, but I've said it before to a lot of people. Like in Madison, I didn't really have DJ mentors. I just kind of taught myself. Like the thing about that situation I'm talking about is like every DJ hates getting undercut, but at the same time, a lot of us had to do it to get to where we were at, so like I was at one point in time, I was the DJ that would just come in, get paid like crap or not get paid at all, but I would give a good performance and I took what I did seriously, and it got me fans, and then it eventually got me the leeway, and like I could bring a lot of people to the club, you know. So
Yeah.
it's a unique issue where it's like you kind of have to pay your dues to make what you want to do work, but if you can't, it's gonna happen to you eventually, and then you're gonna feel like you lose out on money type of thing.
So it
And
seems
like,
like it seems like what you're saying is like the sort of progression within this like industry or within this business is like flawed, because it starts with having to undercut the people who have already made it, and then it's just a cycle. So you sort of feel
yeah,
guilty for being mad at these people for doing something you did, and you sort of understand why they do it, but at the same time it's really sucks for you because it takes away a lot of your negotiating power.
yeah, like it's a unique issue, and so like my approach to it, right? Like I didn't have any real like DJ mentors. I kind of just figured everything out, and so like with Liquid, I was a naive DJ. I was young, fresh, starting out, and I would just do everything I could to be available. Like there were DJs, like veteran DJs, who would just not show up because they were tired of not getting paid enough, or not take it seriously because they're not getting paid enough by the club. So they would call me up like, "Yo, can you DJ?" And I would just show up. I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm there." And so I got grandfathered in that way. So like, somebody getting fed up about not getting paid enough was my way to come up. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, I just think about that. It's a real unique issue, because I took that opportunity and I turned the club up. Like
Right.
there were hundreds and hundreds of people that were showing up every week to come to my show, and the residency price that I was getting paid, like I was guaranteed $400 every week, which as like a 20-year-old kid who is DJing was my hobby and I love DJing, and now I'm getting paid from it and I could pay my rent off of it. Like that was cool for me. And if enough people showed up, I would get a bonus at the end of the night, and enough people showed up. So I would end up getting like 700 a night just from DJing at the club, which is way better than any of the clubs in Milwaukee will pay.
Yeah.
So, like, even though Liquid was a club, and eventually a club will just do club things and try and cut costs, and if you're too expensive, you'll just kind of fall out. But despite all that, they were paying me pretty well by a club's standard in my mind.
Gotcha.
Um,
Do you think it also like
I definitely could have been getting paid more. Absolutely could have been getting paid.
Yeah, for how much you brought in, you could have gotten paid a lot more.
Yeah, man, I mean, I'm sure they were making like 50 racks a night at least.
Yeah.
So $100 ain't nothing.
Do you think, like, even putting aside like the labor aspect of it, do you think it hurts the art form to have like all the like to have DJs, who are good or who are performing in clubs be like, fuck it, I'm done, this doesn't pay well enough? Like, do you think that hurts the sort of DJing at all?
I don't know. I think because like I said, there's a lot more DJs than there are clubs. So like if a DJ has a problem, like there'll be another DJ to fill that space. The thing is like how is the culture gonna feel afterwards? Like people felt my absence once I left Liquid. And Milwaukee felt my presence once I got there and once I was done with Madison. You know what I mean? So I mean, like the DJ will always take their craft with them wherever they go if they're serious about it and if they're persistent enough and patient enough. but I still don't think that gives venues an excuse to not pay us well, or clients an excuse to not pay us well, because what we do is important. And if you don't want to pay it, then you could just get on the aux on your phone and play off of Spotify, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. And
Mm.
look, see, like we can think about it in like economic terms, like, yeah, they're providing, they're adding to the economy, but like on a deeper level, like, you know, going to the club, having a really great DJ, playing the right songs, like these are important social aspects that we don't really think about much anymore because of COVID and stuff. But like,
Yeah,
I think that like sort of building that social cohesion is an important thing, and that's why, you know, DJs, artists are a vital part of the community.
yeah,
Um, yeah. And
1000%.
so, do you see other DJs as like fellow workers, competitors, or both?
Um, Man, when I was starting out, when I was in Madison, I did not like DJs. Like, I really didn't like DJs because of I felt like there was a certain like elitism
Hmm.
to DJs. Because like working in a venue, getting a residency, it's a very competitive thing. There's more DJs than there are venues, and if you have a residency and you have guaranteed performance and money every week, you're not going to just put on for some other DJ who could potentially and very feasibly take your spot later on.
Hmm.
And I wasn't using equipment like DJ equipment. That's another thing about DJs, that DJs really, especially the older DJs, they really respect people who are like using turntables, and like it's a tough art form, being like a turntablist. So like a lot of DJs wouldn't even pay attention to me or give me the time of day just because I wouldn't use equipment. Like I would just DJ off of my laptop. So it created a lot of like resentment, because I'm just trying to learn how to be the best DJ I can be, and people are like downplaying my art or talking down on what I do just because I don't use a piece of equipment, which would essentially do the same thing that my laptop does. So I didn't like DJs at first, but once I got to like know a certain couple DJs, like my first DJ friend that I had was Mr. New York. He's from Milwaukee. He was cool, and I shared a residency with Nick Magic, who is friends with New York, and they're the two DJs that were like cool and would either talk about and give props to what I do, or teach me something,
Hmm.
even if it was just like a little thing, like, yeah, this is what I do in this moment, and we could all learn from each other.
Hmm.
But once I started meeting other DJs, and it was like, it was cool, but they're all friends, but at the same time, I'm a competitive guy just by nature. So if I see New York killing something, I'm like, okay, I got to kill something now.
Right.
So it's a competition aspect of it, and especially in hip hop specifically, hip hop is very competitive, and rap as an art form, it's competitive. It's sport, and it's survival of the fittest. So that's how I treat it. Especially since
Hmm.
I consider myself a hip hop DJ, it's like you gotta once you get on stage, you can't be scared or nothing. Like you gotta just do what you do best.
So, to a bigger, sort of a big picture question. So, Jay-Z and a bunch of artists made Tidal, right? And
Yeah,
Tidal is a streaming platform that compensates their artists somewhat fairly. It's not exactly fair, but it's much better than
not
most.
perfect, but it's better. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's owned by artists, which is also good. But
Mm-hmm.
how do you see any way to build, or what would they look like to build sort of alternative clubs, alternative institutions that would more fairly compensate these performers?
Yeah, I think see the thing about that is like at the end of the day, it's a business, but you know, at the same time, like on a corporate level, like corporations have to pay their clients a certain amount, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like in the music industry, that isn't really a thing. Like you don't have to pay a DJ anything. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to pay anybody anything, but they're also not employees, they're independent contractors. So,
Right.
you know, it's pretty much up to you to make it work. And so like with the pandemic, a lot of people have been, since there was no outlet, there were no clubs, there was no anything for people to do, people took it into their own hands. So they start streaming on Twitch and things like streaming on Twitch, on Mixcloud, on YouTube, and kind of building their own platform and taking their art into their own hands. And I understand that. But as far as like forcing venue owners to pay their DJs, that's pretty much up to the goodwill of the venue owner.
Yeah, and that's sort of something we struggle a lot with in political science, because we're under a system where there's many jobs now, like because they're independent contractors, they're not employees, they don't get
Right,
benefits, they don't get
right, exactly.
contributions to the retirement and healthcare funds and
Yeah,
Social Security and all these things. And it's look, as someone who's like very pro labor, it's largely just a way for companies to
exploit.
undercut their own employees, yeah, and not call them employees. So yeah, that it seems like a unique problem, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on today.
Yeah.
um, is because it's really important for us to understand like how big of a challenge it's going to be to really unionize the whole workforce, and not
Hmm.
and if not unionized, then collectivized, then sort of um, like opening DJ owned, like if you have like 6 DJs, they rotate and they all collectively own this club that they all DJ at, and doing things like that.
Yeah,
Or
you know, I,
you have any thoughts on that?
I think it could work, but it would just take all of the DJs like opening their venue together.
Yeah.
Um, and then you got like booking agencies. You have like DJ booking agencies, DJ City, scam artists. You got
Mhm.
things like that. Core DJs, where it's like if you're a DJ under one of those booking agencies, then you know you don't really have to worry about negotiating price. It's just like they'll do it for you and they just take a cut. Um, but a lot of DJs can't really get signed to those types of deals
Mhm.
unless they're like really doing something crazy.
Mhm. So before
Um,
you, oh,
yeah,
go
I don't
ahead.
know. I don't,
So
I don't know.
before
It's tough.
so before you go, um, pretty historic verdict the other day. What are your
Yes,
thoughts on the Derek
sir.
Chauvin verdict?
Yeah, I'm glad he got put away because you know he needed to get put away. Um, Another part of me feels like it was more just like a band-aid on a larger issue and bigger wound. And I think about if he didn't get put away, what would have happened, what type of changes would have been demanded just out
Mm.
of grief and strife. And I feel like he was kind of like sacrificed by his own to keep the system that allows it in place. So it was bittersweet. Like, you know, he got arrested, which is good. It seemed like the obvious choice given that he murdered somebody in HD cameras, you know, like caught it. Um, George Floyd is dead and he's never going to come back. And like the whole time that the trial was going on, there was more police killings going on too. So, and more mass shootings, you know? So it's a band-aid on a very larger symptom of a disease that's happening specifically here in the US.
The fact that
And
there's that awareness though is like great though, because like most, I can see 5-10 years ago this would be a historic victory, and in some sense it represents something. But the fact that you know there's this awareness that this system's broken, and it's sort of doing these very small concessions to sort of just make people happy, so they don't demand it to just all be gone.
yeah,
And I honestly think we're at a point now where people are more
people are
like,
fed up, man.
yeah,
And I'm thinking like, like it's good that he is off the streets and he's going to be in prison for a long time. But I think about like, damn, like the way the American people would just blow everything up if he didn't get convicted and they say he was not guilty, then it's like the whole country's going up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and
And
I think, yeah, no, you're totally right.
yeah, people would kind of have to listen at that point. It's like you can see it's clearly crooked, but
And it seems like these systems have outlived their time, and it's to a point where they're super unstable, where like one decision can be the difference between like, okay, we're still pissed, but like good, and
right, exactly.
or like, hey, we're gonna burn down the rest of your buildings, like,
Yeah,
which I'm all
exactly.
for. People are always so goddamn sensitive about like property and shit. I'm like, no, burn it down. Like,
Yeah,
that's so much better than hurting people. Just burn that shit down. Like,
yeah,
fuck a
that's
Wal,
awesome.
like
That's
fuck a
right.
Walmart, fuck a Amazon distribution center, and fuck a Wells Fargo for like, what are you worried about?
Yeah,
Like,
man.
nobody who owns these businesses cares about you. Just burn it down.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Where it's like it's good that he got taken out, but part of me is just like I wonder how the country would have reacted if he didn't, and how it would have forced progress if it did at all. But yeah.
Absolutely.
Overall, I'm happy with the verdict. He should have been arrested. He should have gone to jail. He should be in prison for a long time, and it sounds like he's gonna be. I'm waiting to see what the sentencing is like before I really get to celebrating, though, because they might just be like, "Oh yeah, 5 years." Like, yeah, come on.
Yeah, or there might be some bullshit bail and some stupid fucking white supremacist organization bails him out.
Yeah,
But
you never know, man.
but is there anything you want to plug before we go? Social media,
Yeah,
clubs
I
you
mean,
perform? I don't know.
you could follow me on social media, DJay Mando, which is DJay Mando. It's all the same. My boy Dose here, he goes crazy with the dance moves. Dance for Dose. Dance for Dose.
Dance for Dose.
Yep. He's in third place right now on Mario Kart.
That's respectable.
We got our shows coming back, which is good. And we're just waiting on Summerfest. And we got some like shows in Milwaukee that we're working on and planning, but nothing's set in stone yet. So we'll just wait and see.
Are you doing Summerfest this year for sure or no?
I mean, I was supposed to last year, so I mean,
Yeah.
I'm pretty much assuming that I am. I just haven't heard anything back yet because they be getting to all the headliners and stuff like that first. So
Sweet. Well, let me tell you, if you get to catch DJay Mando at Summerfest ever, it is lit.
yeah, man, you should have.
It is lit.
I still got video of you swag surfing on stage with us, man. That was cracking.
That was so fun.
You had the Justin Bieber cut too.
Yeah, I
You had the
know.
hair
Now I
slips.
just don't comb my hair and just fuck it.
Yeah, man. But yeah,
Hell
bro.
yeah.
I'm glad you had me on here. Glad we could chop it up, and it was good to hear from you. Good to see you.
Hell yeah.